Hi, good morning everyone. It's Mark, your broker, and I wanted to share some ideas and some experiences that I think will be helpful to you in your real estate sales career. I know that by observing what goes on around me and what goes on inside my head, it's helpful for me to evaluate what's working and what's not working, and then I can share that with you. I think that's part of my job as your broker, to help you with that. So, I wanted to share with you a couple of things. Before I start, I want you to consider the idea of too much information and missing the point. That's what I wrote down on my note card before I started this. Too much information and missing the point. I love giving you the information this way on the video, partly because I know that we're not going to have so many differing ideas and so much differing input and so many differing what ifs, or I had an experience like, and if the buyer has red hair and is dressed like a clown, that doesn't apply. I mean, that's how some of the dialogues go when we have a sales meeting where we talk about an issue. I think at the end of it, there's so much information that's passed around that the point I'm trying to make gets lost. Okay, so I appreciate those of you that take the 5 or 10 minutes to watch the videos, and listen to the message that I'm trying to share, because I'm trying to share it with you to help you with your business. The theme for this week is a question, and the question is, are there any excuses that you allow, any excuses that you embrace that will give you the excuse not to do your job? Are there any conditions, any buyer conditions, any seller conditions, that are valid excuses that would give you license to not do your job? Now, that's a real awkward way to say it, but that's really the point. Okay? Are there excuses that we have that give us license not to do our job? That's a little clearer. Okay, so I want you to think about this. Okay, this last week I got some feedback that I really didn't like from a potential client who said that this person had talked with some of my past sellers, and that the feedback they got was that the sellers didn't get enough feedback and they didn't get enough communication. I happen to know who one of those sellers were, and immediately the thoughts started going through my mind of all the excuses why I didn't call that lady, why I didn't follow up with that lady, why I didn't call her every week, why I didn't communicate to her satisfaction. Okay? And here's what came out of it. Okay? The God's honest truth is that in some cases I don't communicate properly with my sellers, and here's the excuse I have. If I tell a client that their property is overpriced and they need to do this or that or the other to get it sold, and they don't listen to me, that's an excuse not to do my job that I have been comfortable to live with. Okay? But the clients don't deserve that. If I have a listing agreement and a contract with a client, they deserve my attention. And if I'm not willing to give them my attention, I need to terminate the contract or change the excuse. So the answer to the question for all of you, when I ask it of myself, is, Mark, are there any excuses that you give yourself that allow you to not do your job? I have been operating on one that says, if the clients don't do what I ask them to do, then I have an excuse not to stay in touch with them and do my job. Okay? I personally need to change that. There are some other things that I've observed that I also want to share with you that work, more so with buyers. And the question is, when you have a buyer possibility, a suspect, your job as a salesperson is to inquire, to build rapport, figure out their needs, find out if you can help them, learn what their expectations are. Basically, you have to communicate with them. Okay? You need to also demonstrate that you care about them. I guarantee you most buyers that come to you don't immediately tell you everything, and they don't immediately trust you because you haven't earned it. So to expect somebody to give you all the right answers in a 2-minute conversation with a buyer probably isn't realistic. Okay? You're probably asking me, well, what do I mean by this? Okay, well, here's what I mean by this. Okay? When you get a sign call or you get a lead, the people are going to give you a little bit of information. Are there any answers or responses that they give you that immediately stop you from doing the rest of your job? And I think the answer is yes. here's some of the things that I've heard listening to salespeople for the last 26 years. Oh, that buyer is working with another agent, so I don't need to ask him any other questions or offer him help. I don't have to engage with them. Hey, they gave me a sign. They're working with another agent or they've talked with another agent, so I'm done. I'm not going to do any more work on it. Okay? You know, I'm interested in buying a $40,000 cabin. Salesperson says, oh, $40,000 after I pay my 30%, my agent bill, you know, I only get $700. You know what? That's not worth my time. I'm not going to give that person the time and energy and effort because it's not worth my time for $700. Okay? What about this one is, you know, I'm interested in buying a house and I'm looking around up here. I have a question about your listing. Oh yeah, I'm working with my brother-in-law, an agent down the hill. Okay, so I hear agents all the time getting ticked off and saying, well, the heck, I'm not giving him any information. Hang up the phone and they're done. Excuse not to do their job. Okay, so the question is, do any of those excuses sound like something that you would use as an example of not being willing to do your job? Okay, I think the answer in a lot of offices, including ours at times, is we allow ourselves excuses not to do our job. Okay, and I'd like to stop that. Okay, so I want to give a big kudos to Ken Simons, and I think all of you should too, because I experienced watching Ken yesterday do his job. And here's how the buyer presents himself. The buyer walks in, looking for a list of properties that were left out by another agent. This buyer wanted to buy a $10,000 to $20,000 lot. No money in that. The agent down the hill doesn't know anything about Big Bear. That means I'm going to have to spend a whole lot of time and educate him for not a lot of money. That doesn't sound like a whole lot of fun. Oh, by the way, this buyer is a real estate agent that works for Realty Executives down the hill that wants to represent herself. Okay, so far that's 3 strikes as far as I can see. I got to spend a lot of time educating. There's not a whole lot of money in it, and there may be no money in it because she wants to represent herself. Okay, most agents, given that scenario, would not do their job, and Ken did. And here's what he did. He spent 5 to 10 minutes listening to her, demonstrating that he understood the market, wanted to know what it was that she was looking for, wanted to find out how he could be of assistance to her, you know, and clarified that with her. Okay, here's what you're trying to accomplish, and here's the inventory, and here's my knowledge, here's what I can do for you. And then he did something very courageous. And this is part of the job, okay? The very courageous thing that he did is he asked a simple question. He says, well, you know, this is what you want to do, and you want to represent yourself. Can you tell me what's in it for me to drop what I'm doing and stop and go to help you? He had the courage to ask that question. That's part of our job, to clarify boundaries. Okay? He was willing to do that. Okay? She said, well, you know, when you put it that way, I guess there isn't really any incentive for you, so what can we do to fix that? Okay, and they came to an agreement on how they were going to interact with each other on a financial basis, and then Ken went out and did his job. He showed property, asked questions, figured out what she was looking for rather quickly, I might add. In less than 2 hours, she was ready to buy a $100,000 lot that had a boat dock. Okay? So how do you get from a $10,000 to $20,000 lot with a real estate agent that wants to represent themselves to 2 hours later being willing to buy a $100,000 lot and pay you? Okay, how does that happen? And the answer is by doing your job, by asking the questions, by demonstrating that you care, making sure that you understand what the person wants to do, identifying boundaries and agreements on compensation. Okay? He didn't give up. He was willing to spend 5 or 10 minutes and walk away, 30 minutes and walk away, or he was willing to help her. Okay? Great example of an agent doing their job. Now, I know what some people would say was, you know, that doesn't happen every time. Well, I guarantee you this. If you don't go through the process that Ken demonstrated in that event yesterday, nobody would get a sale. Okay? Nobody would get a sale. If every time an agent calls from outside of the area that wants to represent themselves and I refuse to help them, guess what? I sell none of those people property. If agents or if buyers come up that want to look at $40,000 cabins and I decide I'm not ever going to show people property that want to spend $40,000, I'll never sell one of them a $40,000 cabin, and likewise I'll never sell them a $200,000 cabin. Okay? Because I wasn't willing to invest my time to do my job. And if I invest my time to do my job, you never know what they might do. They might multiply their sales price by 5 times, and they might be willing to pay you if they feel that you can be of some value to them. Okay? So the big message today is, okay, and the point that I want to make and I want to leave you with is, are there any excuses that you get from a buyer or seller that give you permission not to do your job? And if you understand that there are, okay, do you realize that when you don't do your job, you're not going to get paid? Okay? We get paid a lot of money for the deals that we sell, and that makes up for all the work that we do on the deals that we don't sell. I mean, I don't know why that works. It's just the way real estate is. It's been that way for 26 years. I don't think it's ever going to change. But the person that does the job, like Ken demonstrated yesterday, is a great example for all of us to not let any excuses prevent us from doing our job. I hope you take that message to heart. I sure hope I take the message to heart myself regarding staying in touch with my sellers. We're all in this together. I want you to win. I want to win. Okay. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you tomorrow at the sales meeting.